What's going on, y'all? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Rich Off Games podcast. This is episode 37. Happy Monday Mondays. I hope you all had a great weekend. I hope you all had a great start to your week, start to your day. Wherever you are, whenever you are watching this, thank you all for tuning in. Make sure you guys show some love and support however you can. I appreciate that so much. Without further ado, let's get right to it. But before we get started, you know I gotta say a few things. So I want to recap this weekend that I had overall, and really want to recap the last 2 weeks I've been having. Just be a little more transparent with y'all on my journey and things that I've been dealing with. So the last 3 weeks, really the last close to a month, I haven't been seeing the results that I desired to see in the market. You know, I haven't been seeing the Rich Off Gains execution. That's simply due to the fact that I was in my own way. I was having a conversation with a few of my guys yesterday. We went out to a cigar lounge, and we sat down and had a conversation that really reignited my perspective, reignited my fire, because a lot of times I'll be in my own world, I'll be in my own head about my success, my failures, the things that I'm going through, the things that I'm dealing with. I tend to not talk to people about it because I just don't feel that I don't feel there's anything that anyone else can do to help me out of my situation, if that makes sense. And so I had this conversation with my brothers, and you know, the conversation was just about stagnation. The conversation was about being stuck, feeling stuck and being stuck, being in the place of not growing and not breaking through that ceiling that you've been wanting to break through and trying to break through each and every day, showing up, working, trying to find the solutions to make the necessary things that you want to see happen. And so a lot was said, but what I took away from what was said was essentially the reason why we're not seeing the success. One of the many reasons why we're not seeing the success is simply due to the fact that we're in our own way. We're in our own way because we might think that something happens so easily that it's just it happened too easy that it can't be that easy. When in reality it is that easy. It simply is just that easy. God allows something to be easy enough for you to do something consistently, but we have the tendency to be in disbelief of something working so easily that we mess off or do that total opposite of what we're supposed to do to see the result. And that leads us down a path of hurt, that leads us down a path of failure, that leads us down a path of just disbelief and not being faithful, when in reality it's really working for you, just not taking an acknowledgement of what's working. And so that's one thing I want you guys to know. Take acknowledgement of what's working. Take acknowledgement of the blessings that God is giving you each and every day, because He's giving you those blessings. You just have to see and use your perspective and have clarity on what the situation that you're dealing with is to understand and recognize the blessing that's being given. Don't overlook your blessing because you're comparing it to somebody else's blessing. I think I had that tendency of overlooking what I was getting in the market and overlooking what success I was getting from trading by seeing other people's success from trading, by seeing other people's results from trading, by seeing other people's big outcomes from trading. When in reality, we're doing the same exact thing. They're just putting more money in. So it's like you got to understand where you're at and appreciate where you're at and take advantage and acknowledge where you're at and take those small wins. Those small wins start to compound. And so that was the revelation I came to yesterday after having a conversation with my brothers. And you know, it really helped me better perceive my situation and where I'm at in life, because a lot of times we be in our own way. And that's the conversation I want to talk about today, is like how can we as individuals do better and execute better in life and not be in our own way. I think one of the ways that we can do that is just simply by accepting the results we're given. So you show up to the gym, you show up with an expectation, you show up with a goal, you show up with something that you intend to do in mind, and you do that thing, but then you're not satisfied. So your flesh and your mentality around the thing that you did, even though you accomplished the idea that you had, it's not satisfaction to you. Now you want to do more. Well, now you're putting yourself to exposure of overdoing it. And when you overdo something, you tend to get the opposite result. Because once you reach that point of destination, it's like getting to the destination. You going somewhere, boom, 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 head to my destination, head to my destination. I get there, and now I'm like, nah, I don't need to go. I got to go further. Now you're burning more gas, more energy. You're going further than where you're supposed to go. You're missing the opportunities you was going to have at the destination that you were supposed to arrive at, simply due to the fact that you're not satisfied and content with where you're going. So, not getting in your own way and not losing the progress simply by just taking what you get and walking away. Taking the small gains, small wins in the market and walking away. Taking the small connections, small seeds, because those are seeds that are being planted that can grow over time. And God is going to bring everything together eventually in due time if you just allow it to all marinate and come together and mesh. You gotta give grace when things are not working out in the way you want them to work. You still gotta show up, you still gotta execute, you still gotta work. If you don't do the things that you're supposed to do necessary for you to get the result and be in the position needed to be whenever the result arrives, it's not gonna happen. You're not gonna get it. A lot of people will get somewhere, go so far to not gain something, and then turn around. As soon as they turn around, the thing that they was looking to chase and trying to obtain was right behind that next step, right behind that next action, right behind that next thing that they had to do. All they had to do was keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing. Little did they know it was right there. You'd be so close to the finish line, but you tend to give up and turn around and change course and change direction. When in reality, you're not supposed to do that. You got to break through the obstacles, break through the challenges, the things that you're facing by continuously showing up, pushing. But while you're doing that, you got to take those small gains and those small wins on the journey, because now that's building your confidence up, that's building your belief up, your faith up, and now you're getting closer and closer to the end goal. So that's one of the main ways I think that we can get out of our own way, is simply just by taking what we get when it's presented. We're like, okay, this is what I'm presenting. Take it on it, it's on the table. Take it or leave it. Your choice. You always have a choice. And that was one thing I realized. Trading the market and making the decisions I've been making, I've always had a choice. I had a choice to choose to turn off the screen and not trade it, and take another trade. I had a choice to choose to get up and walk away or to keep trading. I had the choice to choose whether or not I wanted to continue going down the same path each and every day I was taking the L. Because the days I won, I get up and walk away. I have the self-control to walk away on a winning day, but on a losing day, that's where they get you. So you got to be able to maintain the plan, stick to the plan, and stick to the process of showing up, of doing the thing, and executing the same way every day. Win, lose, or draw. The same way of execution every single day. That's one problem that I had to fix going into this next half of the year. So if you're that same way, change your approach. You know it's not working for you. You see it every day. That's why you're disappointed with yourself. That's why you're frustrated with yourself. You know, when you feel a way about the actions or the results that you get, it's because you know what you did wrong or what you should have did differently. What you had the chance to do differently, but you didn't. Because you wanted to deviate from the plan, deviate from God's plan that He had placed on your heart to do, and get distracted by the enemy's voice and the enemy's input on your actions. So don't allow the enemy to take control of your actions. Have self-control over your actions. Have discipline over your actions. Stick to the plan and follow God's plan and what He has placed in front of you. Because He's going to give you exactly what you ask for every single time. It's just on you to decide if you want to take it or leave it. You take it and then you keep going, okay, great. But if you take it, keep going on the same day, now you're putting yourself at risk. because what he gave you that day is what he gave you that day. Now you gotta wait for the next day and the day after that. But you too busy trying to get it all in one day. That's not how it works. You gotta be patient. So that's another thing as well, is like patience. A lot of times we're not patient enough with the process. We think everything is so instant and everything's supposed to happen with a snap of a finger. That's not the case. Things take time. You can't go to law school. My girlfriend, she's going to law school. So you can't go to law school and expect to get your law degree within 2 weeks, within a day. That's just not realistic. It takes time, energy, and effort. You gotta show up. You gotta show up consistently to learn just the basics, not even just to master something. To master something is really gonna take some time. To get to a level of mastery, it's gonna take years and years and years and years and years of working, of learning, of trial and error, of doing the thing over and over and over again in order for you to obtain mastery. So I know I'm nowhere near the level of mastery I need to be at in the market, and that's okay. But I know I'm also nowhere near the level of beginner to be trading the way I've been trading the last 3 weeks. That's not okay. When you know better but you don't do better, that's not okay. That's never okay. It's just like making wrong decisions for your relationship. When you're in a relationship with somebody and you're doing the wrong things like cheating, you showing up late for the person, you're not communicating, you're not talking to the person, you're doing all the wrong things and you know what you're doing because you know you feel a way about it. And if you don't, then maybe you shouldn't be with that person. That's another story. You know you're doing wrong when you feel it. When you feel like okay, this is wrong. When you feel like something's bad, that means it's bad. And you know it's bad because you feel that way. Am I lying? So you gotta be more mindful of your actions, the things you're doing, and be more mindful of your patience and your discipline. How disciplined are you as a person when it comes to showing up for the things you want to show up for? How disciplined are you as a person with God? How patient are you with God? I had to learn that I'm not as patient as I thought I was with God because He was giving me the result that I wanted. I just wasn't content with the result that was given. And so that's on me. So I went on my own at that point. I'm deviating from God's plan and what He had planned for me to succeed and what He wanted me to do. I was deviating from it. That's on me. So once you acknowledge that and you take accountability for it, now you have the ability to change course, change direction, and do different. But it won't happen until you take acknowledgement of your problems and what you're doing wrong. You gotta acknowledge that. That's key. So all in all, just make sure to be in tune with what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong, in order for you to have better self-control of your actions, in order for you to have a better understanding of your self-awareness of what your situation is and why it is the way it is. Otherwise, it's not going to work out for you and you won't be able to see any level of success. Honestly, if you have no self-control, it's really going to hinder you to see success because God gives His blessings to people that are in self-control, in my opinion at least. If you guys want more tips and tricks about day trading and investing, make sure to click the link in the bio, www.continuebelief.com. I share a lot of free resources and tools, tips and tricks about how to day trade, how to get started investing, and so much more. So make sure you guys check out the link in the bio. Thank you guys so much. Make sure to leave a like and follow. And yeah, see you guys later. Today's investment tip of the week. Take your profits. There's never been anything wrong with taking profits. I've never seen somebody get scolded or somebody get yelled at for taking profits. Now, maybe I'm just not at a certain level of, exposure to the market or exposure to investment firms or whatever the case is. But I'm sure most investment firms want to see their accountants, their financial advisors to take profit. Especially for their clients. They want their clients to make money. Now, of course, they want them to make the most amount of money. So don't be taking profits on the little gains that, especially for a sector, a company that's hot and that's running up. Nah. But if you ran up to a certain target at a certain point and okay, yeah, this is really hot right now. I need to sell while it's hot and sell while it's hot, not while it's not. Then that's when you should take profits. just be mindful of it. You're not gonna get every single percentage gain on a stock. That's just sometimes that's how the dice will roll. You're not gonna catch every big play. You're not gonna catch every big move. But the ones you do catch, take your profits. Because if you end up bag holding and you're not taking profits, now what can happen is a company that was hot is no longer hot. It's not. Now it reverses. Now the value that was once had, the story that was once had is no longer there. So now the value of the company has gone completely down below your entry price. And now you cooked because you never took profits. You never secured that gain. You just looked at it, screenshotted it, and posted on Instagram with a Nipsey Hussle song on the back of it. You didn't think about taking profits. You gotta take profits because that's the only way it really is obtained. Now, granted, there are some cases hold for the long term. I'm a strong believer in holding for the long term as well when it comes to certain companies. But if you're buying a company that you're not too confident in the long-term story of what the belief behind this company is, take your profits. 100% gain, take some trims. You can also take trims, look to get back in the position whenever there's another pull back at a discounted price that makes sense for you to buy. There's nothing wrong with taking profits. Take your profits, please. All right. Today I want to talk about the best performance stocks and the worst performance stocks. So we're going to start with the best performance stocks in last week's session. So let's talk about it. All right, y'all. So the first sector that did really well last week in the market is ticker symbol XLE, which is energy, up over 4.5% after seeing the Iran war kick back in and the U.S. and Iran go back and forth. That caused energy, specifically oil companies and stocks, commodities to go up in price, seeing a very good gain in the market last week. The second sector that did really well, consumer staples, ticker symbol XLP, seeing a 1.5 to 2% return last week, having really good performance just as a defensive name and a rotation name from tech to consumer staples, Walmart, Amazon, a lot of them, Dollar General, Coca-Cola, so many different ones in the retail space that saw some good gains last week. Thirdly, we have finance. The financial sector had a 1.5 to 1% return last week, ticker symbol XLF. Now, a lot of companies in the financial sector had really good earnings reports. Goldman Sachs, Visa, MasterCard, JP Morgan, Bank of America, Citibank, outstanding earnings reports. And that was due to, Morgan Stanley specifically was due to it being one of the major leaders in the IPO shareholders. So a lot of IPO shareholders and people who were investing in IPOs were invested through Morgan Stanley, and they saw a very good return on investment from that and got a good rate of return for the investors that were invested into that. So finance is the third sector that did really well. Now let's talk about the worst sectors that performed in the market last week. Starting out with number one, tech, ticker symbol XLK, seeing a negative 3.65% return last week due to the fact that semiconductors came down hard. TSMC reported good earnings, but it wasn't really about the earnings. I think that what caused it, and we'll talk about it in a little bit more, but I think what really caused it is just rotation out of the semiconductor space and just profit taking, people taking profits, right? Second sector that performed bad last week, ticker symbol XLB, materials, down 1.85%. A lot of names that reported last week just didn't meet the expectations. They were a lot softer on the expectations than expected, and that shied a few people away from wanting to continue holding. They wanted to take profits, which I don't blame them. They were also up a lot as well. Caterpillar, Deere, a lot of different material companies were up really big this year. So that's another sector that also came down. Lastly, we have communication services, ticker symbol XLC, down over 1.5%. And companies like Netflix and Google saw a little bit of a pullback. Netflix did have earnings reports last week, which were not bad at all, but I think that market just wanted to sell out a little bit more, let it come down to a more discounted price, and it did see a little bit of a pop going into the end of Friday. So I don't think it's because of the earnings report itself. I just think that, like I said, a lot of rotation going out, which it was on Friday, so there was a lot of option expiration happening as well, which could have led to that as well, because given that Netflix earnings report, I believe, was on Thursday afternoon, going into that Friday session, we did see some selling pressure come in. So that was my thoughts on the bad companies that came down. I look at those sectors: tech, materials, and communication services, all as buying opportunities. So today, the market did see a pop back up on semiconductor companies. AMD, Micron, Intel, Dell, a lot of names saw a little bit of a run up today. Leading into the opening bell pre-market, we saw a push higher in the semiconductor space. Now going into the end of the session, however, we reverted back to our previous day high and low levels for a lot of names. SPY, QQQ, seeing not a very aggressive pullback, but a pullback lower than where we were earlier in the day due to those semiconductor names pulling back lower as well. So what does that mean for us going into the remainder of this month of July? I think that just means to be prepared for more possible selling pressure, more opportunities to buy long term, because typically July and August are weaker months in the year, and going into September as well. Those are the next quarter. This quarter that we're currently in, quarter 3, is typically a weaker quarter than the rest. So quarter 4 is going to be typically the best quarter of the year, but then quarter 3 is where that new repositioning of equities and a lot of companies that are worth buying start to happen. But one thing that I did notice in today's session at the close was Microsoft started to push back above 400. Now I believe they have earnings reports coming up, not this week, but next week. I gotta double check that. But with the current performance that we've seen in Microsoft, I believe that it still has room to run. That's one of my favorite companies to be invested in right now, given that semiconductors have seen a very aggressive run higher and they are due for pullbacks. I think that the rotation to software, specifically Microsoft, would be not out of the question given the run-up we've had in the semiconductor space and the undervaluation we've had in Microsoft. So if you were to buy Microsoft around 400 to 350, again, it's not financial advice, do your own research. I don't think that's a bad price, however. I think that that's a good buying price to get in at, and I believe it can see closer to 600 within the next year and a half to 2 years. That's my personal prediction on Microsoft. I believe it does have room to run higher, and I think that it's very undervalued right now. So Microsoft being one of those names. Another name that I think is also undervalued, which I mentioned briefly earlier, was Netflix. Netflix, seeing the pullback that they had after earnings, after being a really good earnings, not a bad earnings. And Paramount and Warner Brothers, also their deal not being approved by the whatever certain states are not in approval of the merger with Paramount and Warner Brothers. So a judge denied them access to, I believe it was the Supreme Court. They denied them access to allowing them to merge as of right now. So that could very much hinder the ability to acquire and merge those two companies, which puts Netflix in favor of more streaming demand going to them, because they already are the leaders, and just continue to drive their company higher with more subscriptions, which I think is really good. And they also have the new avenues of streaming where they're doing live sports, different entertainment events, podcasts, all these other things. So I just think that Netflix has positioned themselves to be in a really good spot. And I'm glad they didn't go through purchasing Warner Brothers, because as you see what's happening with them, that would have just been a very drawn out situation all throughout the year. And as a Netflix investor, being a Netflix investor, I wouldn't have wanted to continue to hold that, especially with them having to deal with that as well. So I'm happy that they didn't follow through with that, and I think that that's something that could possibly come back full circle later on down the road. Like they might buy them out with Paramount being included. Who knows? I don't know. It's just a thought. We'll see what happens in a few years. But yeah, Netflix, Microsoft, semiconductor names, they have pulled back again. I think that they're still valuable, because there is still demand for memory. There is still demand for semiconductors and chips. So NVIDIA, AMD, I just think that specifically AMD, NVIDIA, those are more on the higher value side. Micron had a pullback around 800. We then saw a bounce higher going up into 850 today, closer to 850, 880. Then we saw them pull back down. I don't know exactly where it closed at, but somewhere between that range. So I think Micron seeing a high of $1,250, closer to about, that's about what, 20+%, 30+% roughly. If we get another 40% down, I believe that it's a good buy. 50% down, I think it's a great buy. So 40% down, 1,250 would be roughly about 750, around that range. That would be where I'd look to want to buy Micron. And then anything lower than that, I think it's even better buys, continue to average in and hold. Micron has a very strong use case behind it. It's memory. Every AI data center, AI center needs memory, and memory is going to be the driver to a lot of these AI factories, AI infrastructures, and it's going to be very, very vital that we have memory, because you got to be able to remember what's being said and what data and information is being input to have something to use as backlog. So memory is going to be a story that is around for a long time, so I think that that's another good buy. What else? I think that's really it for tech. I mean, software is very beaten up, very undervalued. Consumer services, we talked about Netflix. I don't believe in Disney, and I don't see Disney as much of a competitor when it comes to streaming platforms. And the reason being is just because Netflix is just, I don't know, I just feel like Netflix is blowing them out the water when it comes to streaming services. Now, when it comes to entertainment and story and IP, I think Disney's IP is stronger than Netflix to an extent. You know, Netflix is developing and establishing a lot of things when it comes to the Netflix house, when it comes to more individual series made by Netflix. Netflix has a lot more room to run, and that's just how I feel about Netflix comparison to Disney. I think that Disney is a household name, and it'll be here to stay, but it won't be a growth stock like Netflix is. So that's my personal opinion on that. Other than that, yeah, I don't think there's any other companies that I mentioned that I think are worth investing in. Those are the main ones I'm watching and looking to buy. So just keep that in mind going into this next half of the year and the years to come. You know, some of them are good buy and holds. I believe Netflix is either one a good buy and hold or a good trade. I think it's in a good trading spot right now. Microsoft, I think, is more so a good long-term hold. And yeah, so with that being said, that'll conclude today's episode of the Rich Off Games podcast. Thank you all for tuning in so much. I want to thank God for another day that was not promised, allowing me to see these beginnings and ends to days where things are not promised. A lot of things happen in life. A lot of life is life, and just, you know, things are not ever going to be perfect, but you got to make the most of your situation and enjoy the moment as much as you can, because without the moments that we have with the people we love, with the people we know, friends with, the moments we share only matter to us more than anything, because that's all we have. You know, we don't have nothing else. When you leave this earth, you're not going to leave with any kind of money, you're not going to leave with any kind of clothes, any kind of, tangible items. It's going to be your spirit, your memories, and that's really it. So you got to cherish those moments, cherish those memories with your family, friends, and loved ones. Use those to the best of your ability. But that being said, that's going to conclude today's episode. Thank you all for tuning in. I love you all so much. God bless. I'll see y'all next week.